Breaking news out of the Middle East, where Israel conducted its heaviest strikes on Hezbollah targets in Beirut, Lebanon.
In the shadow of ongoing conflict, the Middle East is facing a critical moment. As the United States gears up for the 2024 presidential election, the Biden administration's efforts to broker peace have come under intense scrutiny. The war between Israel and Gaza continues, inching closer to what many fear could be an all-out regional war. But why is this happening, and how does it affect the US, especially with a presidential election on the horizon? To understand the situation, we need to break down the main players. Israel is a sovereign state, a democracy in the heart of the Middle East, surrounded by countries and groups that have, at times, been hostile. On the other side is Hamas, a group that the US and many other countries classify as a terrorist organization. Hamas controls Gaza, a densely populated strip of land between Israel and Egypt, home to nearly 2 million Palestinians. For decades, Israel and Hamas have been locked in cycles of violence, with each side accusing the other of provocations and attacks.
The armed wing of Hamas says that it fired a barrage of rockets at Tel Aviv on Saturday.
Hamas has recently launched rockets into Israel, which responded with airstrikes. Civilians on both sides have paid the heaviest price.
It's a war that tonight is being fought mostly in the air as Israel strikes Gaza.
The Biden administration, along with many other global leaders, has tried to broker a ceasefire.
We should have a ceasefire now.
But the US is in a difficult position, supporting Israel militarily while simultaneously advocating for peace.
Now, CBS News confirms the aid package being sent now by the U.S. includes about $700 million for tank ammunition, $500 million in tactical vehicles, and $60 million in mortar rounds.
The US provides Israel with around $4 billion in military aid each year, largely to ensure Israel's security in a volatile region. This aid is meant to help Israel defend itself against potential threats, particularly from Iran, which has a long history of hostility towards Israel. But with this aid comes influence, and many have called for the US to use that influence to push Israel towards de-escalation. So far, the Biden administration has resisted withholding aid, fearing that such a move could weaken Israel at a crucial time and embolden its enemies, including Iran. Iran is a key player in the region, supporting groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, another militant organization based in Lebanon. Hezbollah poses a serious threat to Israel from the north. While Israel's current conflict is centered in Gaza, the possibility of Hezbollah joining the fight could turn this into a much larger regional war. Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, faces immense pressure at home to neutralize these threats, especially as his popularity wavers.
He's by far the country's longest-serving premier, but also controversial and polarizing.
Netanyahu's leadership has been controversial. He has faced corruption charges and massive protests against his government's attempts to overhaul Israel's judicial system. Before the conflict escalated, his position was precarious, and many Israelis were calling for his removal. But war has a way of shifting political dynamics. For now, his hardline stance against Hamas and other regional threats is resonating with many Israelis who feel that their security is at stake. In the US, this conflict is now becoming a significant issue in the 2024 presidential race. Most Americans, however, are more focused on domestic concerns, rising inflation, the cost of groceries, and gas prices. But foreign policy can't be ignored, especially when it could have a direct impact on Americans' wallets. Former President Donald Trump has a complicated relationship with Israel. During his time in office, he took unprecedented steps to support Israel, including moving the US Embassy to Jerusalem, a move that was celebrated in Israel but criticized by many around the world.
Mr. President Donald, thank you. And this is a manifold thank you. First, thank you for your strong words yesterday in the General Assembly against the corrupt terrorist regime in Iran. You back up your strong words with strong actions. And I think the fact that you have brought American sanctions to bear has cut the cash machine of Iran and its campaign of carnage and conquest in the Middle East. And we who live in the Middle East, Israelis and Arabs, who are subject to this Iranian danger, want to thank you especially.
Now, Trump's rhetoric suggests he has limited patience for the ongoing conflict. hinting that he would push for a quick end to the violence, even if that means distancing himself from Israelis' military actions.
Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people.
So why does this conflict in the Middle East matter to American voters? One word: oil. The Middle East is a critical source of global oil supply, and any major escalation in the region could disrupt that supply, driving up oil prices. That, in turn, would mean higher prices at the pump for American consumers, a development that could sway voters just weeks before the election.
But the spike up today occurred immediately after President Biden added his suggestions that Israel would target Iran's oil facilities.
Already, oil prices are climbing, and if the situation worsens, we could see a spike in gas prices that becomes a central issue in the final weeks of the campaign. The Biden administration is accurately aware of this risk. For most voters, domestic concerns like inflation and job security are top of mind. But foreign conflicts have a way of creeping into American politics, especially when they affect the cost of living. Rising gas prices could provide Trump with a powerful narrative, arguing that Biden has lost control, not just of domestic policy, but of foreign policy as well. And the stakes are even higher for US forces in the region. With over 40,000 American troops stationed in the Middle East, any attack on US personnel could escalate the conflict dramatically. There have already been incidents where American service members were injured or killed. Should a more serious attack occur, it could force the US into direct involvement, something the Biden administration is desperate to avoid.